Om Ajnanatimidandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Dhena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. So now we're going to sing a song by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Today is the Divine Appearance Day of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And this song that he wrote from Sharanagati, O Hey Vaishnava Thakura, is in two-tall. O Hey Vaishnava Thakur, Doyara Sagara, E Dasa Karuna Kori. O Hey Vaishnava Thakur, Doyara Sagara, E Dasa Karuna Kori. O Hey Vaishnava Thakura, Doyara Sagara, E Dasa Karuna Kori. O Hey Vaishnava Thakura, Doyara Sagara, E Dasa Karuna Kori. Diya pada chaya, shodo he amaya, tomara charan dhori. Diya pada chaya, shodo he amaya, tomara charan dhori. Chaya Begadomi, Chaya Dosha Shodhi, Chaya Guna Deho Dase. Chaya Begadomi, Chaya Dosha Shodhi, Chaya Guna Deho Dase. Chaya Satsanga, Deho he amare, Bosichi Sangera Ashe. Chaya Satsanga, Deho he amare, Bosichi Sangera Ashe. Hey Vaishnava Thakura, Doyara Sagara, E Dasa Karuna Kori. Change. Ekaki amar, nahi pae balo, Harinama Sankirtane. Ekaki amar, nahi pae balo, Harinama Sankirtane. Tumi kripa kore, Shraddha bindu diya, Deho Krishna nama dhane. তুমি কৃপা করে সদা বিন্দু দিয়া দেহ কৃষ্ণ নাম ধনে কৃষ্ণ সে তোমার কৃষ্ণ দিতে পারো তোমার শক্তি আছে কৃষ্ণ সে তোমার কৃষ্ণ দিতে পারো তোমার শক্তি আছে আমি তো কঙ্গালা কৃষ্ণ কৃষ্ণ বলে দায় তব পাছে পাছে আমি তো কঙ্গালা কৃষ্ণ কৃষ্ণ বলে দায় তব পাছে পাছে ও হে বৈষ্ণব ঠাকুর দয়ারা সাগরা Idase karuna kori. Switch back. Oh hey, Vaishnava Thakur. Oh hey, Vaishnava Thakur. Doyara sagara. Idase karuna kori. Edase karuna kori. Jaya Vaishnav Thakur, Jaya Vaishnav Thakur, Vaishnav Thakur, Jaya Vaishnav Thakur. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Bhaktivinoda, Jaya Bhaktivinoda, Bhaktivinoda, Jaya Bhaktivinoda. Divino Jaya Sai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Sai Gaura Hari Bol. Translation. O Venerable Vaishnav Thakur, O Ocean of Mercy, be merciful to the servant of yours and purify me with the shade of your lotus feet. Your lotus feet I humbly hold. By helping me control the 6 urges and purifying me of the 6 faults, bestow upon your servant the 6 good qualities. O Master, please give me the 6 kinds of holy association. I have sat down here hoping to have your company. The 6 urges are those of speech, the mind, anger, the tongue, the belly, and the genitals. The 6 faults are overeating or collecting more materially valuable things than required, over-endeavoring for material objectives, unnecessary talking of mundane affairs, being too much attached to scriptural rules and regulations or too neglectful of them, associating with worldly-minded persons, and desiring mundane achievements. The 6 good qualities are enthusiasm, confidence, patience, performing the regulated activities of devotional service, giving up the association of non-devotees, and following in the footsteps of previous acharyas. The 6 activities of holy association are offering gifts and charity, accepting charitable gifts, revealing one's mind in confidence, inquiring confidentially, accepting prasadam
from others and offering prasadam to others. Alone, I do not find the strength to chant the holy name of Hari. Please be merciful and blessing me with a drop of faith. Bestow on me the great treasure of the holy name of Krishna. Krishna is yours, and you can give him to me, for such is your power. This wretch is simply running behind you, crying out, Krishna, Krishna. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya. You can stay on that song. Chakshurun Militam Nena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschachate Shatarine. Today is Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's appearance day. So near the end of class, we'll have a Pushpanjali for Bhaktivinoda Thakur. But in hearing this song, which contains the essence of the Vaishnava's heart, which is sort of surrender and submission to Krishna through the spiritual master, we can actually taste something of the mood that is required to be always in contact with Krishna. And it's amazing how consciousness is carried by sound vibration. And for many centuries, poetry has been cherished in human society. In fact, this poetry in Sanskrit is called dvani, which means an echo. It means that the words that are presented, the meaning that comes out is more than what's written on the page. And one of the qualities of a pure Vaishnava is that he or she is poetical. And we find that Bhaktivinoda Thakur was prolific in his poetry. All the songs that he wrote were hits. And when we sing them, we actually feel the bridge. What's the bridge to? It's to that emotion, that required feeling that one must have of submission to the Lord, that so that one can actually think of Krishna and serve Krishna. So, thinking of this song and how Bhaktivinoda wrote it, I want to read to you his daily schedule so you can meditate on him. When did he write these things? He was very busy. And actually, he's such an exemplar for all of us. Here at ISKCON Silicon Valley, practically everybody has worked. 99% of the devotees here are fully engaged in some kind of a professional duty, but at the same time, they make the time to perform their devotional practices, their sadhana, and then they do seva by distributing books, by cooking, by dressing the deities, cleaning the temple, and so forth. And this was the example that Bhaktivinoda Thakur set. But when we follow in the footsteps of a great acharya, it doesn't mean that we imitate. We can't do exactly what he did. Or if you think you can, after I read you this daily schedule, you raise your hand and let me know. His daily schedule, Lalit Prasad Thakur, in his notes on his father's life, Lalit Prasad Thakur was one of the other sons of Bhaktivinoda Thakur who became a Vaishnava sadhu. Out of 10 sons, 2 became prominent sadhus. Lalit Prasad Thakur was, of course, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur's brother, and he had a huge following. And also he had a disagreement with his brother Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So some of the devotees went to Lalit Prasad Thakur because back then there wasn't a lot of knowledge about bhajans, shlokas, things like that. Some of the devotees in India went and spent time with him, learning some things from him. And of course, Prabhupada went and saw him, brought some devotees there because one time he had thought about donating some land to ISKCON and so forth. But in any case, the devotees who had gone there, when Prabhupada heard about it, he wrote a letter and he said that Lalit Prasad Thakur is a pure devotee in his own right, but you should not go and associate with him because he has a disagreement with my spiritual master, and therefore you'll misunderstand. So you shouldn't associate with him. So it's a very subtle thing in Vaishnava etiquette. There's ways in which there may be disagreements. Still we understand somebody is a pure devotee. Still there's a disagreement. And still we avoid associating with certain people, and we keep fidelity to the mood and method that is coming to us through our Gana and our spiritual master. Gana means group. Lalit Prasad Thakur, in his notes on his father's life, describes the Thakur's daily schedule while he was staying in Jagannath Puri. He was never idle, being always engaged in the service of the Lord. Between 7:30 and 8:30 p.m., he would go to bed. He would then rise just before 10 p.m., light his oil lamp and write books until 4 a.m. Then he would again rest for a maximum of half an hour. At 4:30 a.m., he would wash his hands and face, sit down, and chant on his beads. He never showed his beads to anyone, but would chant on them constantly as time permitted. At 7 a.m., he answered all correspondence. At 7:30 a.m., read various religious and philosophical works, and at 8:30 a.m., he received visitors, if any, or else continued to read until 9:30. At that time, he would walk back and forth on the veranda of his house, contemplating different religious questions and solving them in his mind. Sometimes he would solve them aloud as if preaching to some unseen guest. He would rest briefly from 9:30 a.m. to 9:45 a.m., then take bath and breakfast, which usually consisted of half quart of milk, 2 chapatis, and some fruit. At 9:55 a.m., Bhaktivinoda Thakur would don his uniform and leave for court in his carriage. As a magistrate, he wore a coat and pants. On his neck were 6 strands of large tulsi beads. He was resolute in his court decisions and would decide a case immediately, not tolerating any humbug. He did his business and left. He shaved his head monthly and never cared what anyone thought of it. The lawyers and Englishmen were astounded by the Bhaktivinoda Thakur's capacity for work. Actually, in this book, I'm changing a few things because he keeps referring to him as the Thakur. He says that Thakur's work. But when I was writing my book and I referred to Bhaktivinoda Thakur as the Thakur, and Rabindra Swarup Prabhu was going through in the book because he wrote the preface, he had a precedent for where Prabhupada said, don't just call him Thakur, but Thakur Bhaktivinoda. The author probably didn't know that at the time, but I found that out while writing. Just something to pass on. He would hear between 30 and 50 cases a day, yet he finished by 1 p.m. What took other magistrates 1/2 hour, he finished in 5 minutes. He took another 2 minutes to write the judgment in detail. Some of his British superiors became envious and tried to discourage him, but he was not affected. At 1 p.m., he went home, refreshed himself, and then returned to work from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. Every evening after his court duties, Bhaktivinoda Thakur would translate some Sanskrit religious work into Bengali by dictating it to a secretary. Then there was an evening bath and meal consisting of a little rice, 2 chapatis, and another half quart of milk. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur worked with a pocket watch so that everything he did was on schedule. Despite his heavy domestic and official responsibilities, Bhaktivinoda Thakur's every moment was embellished with an intense desire to render service to the Lord. So it's nice to hear the schedule and the pocket watch, and also that he set this example of family life. Grihe tako bani tako shada hari boli dako, and he wrote this song that wherever you find yourself, in the forest or in family life, doesn't matter. But sada hari boli dako, keep the transcendental vibration going, keep the holy name going, and arrange your schedule in such a way that you can do that. And in the title for this class tonight, I had talked about the, what did I call it? What? Lessons? Wisdom. I want to present to you some of the writings he made from Bhaktivinoda, a book he wrote, Practical Knowledge. Many of the writings and translations that he did were taking the writings of the Goswamis and writing it into language that was very easy to understand. Haribo! We'd like to welcome Rasanath Hari Prasad, Madhukari, and Savitri. Hare Krishna. Welcome, welcome. Please make yourselves comfortable. In this book, Bhaktivinoda, I particularly am fond of this section about prajalpa, because there's a way in which, very practically, by controlling the tongue, one can advance very quickly in devotional service. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. You ready? You sure? Oh, all right. Okay, so this section from his book Sri Bhaktivinoda is entitled Prajalpa. Prajalpa means idle talking. These are an example of some of his very practical instructions. And throughout this book, Bhaktivinoda, you'll find very practical instructions. And they relate to the song that we sang about controlling the 6 urges. One of the 6 urges, Vachovegam, this urge to speak, is very prominent. And of course, as we know, by controlling the urge to speak, by controlling the tongue, Atashi Krishna Namad Inabaved Graimindriye Sevamukhi Jivato Swayameva Spuratyada. You can change that slide anytime you want. I just wanted to see it back for a minute. Feel free, I didn't want to freeze you there forever. And so this section, he focuses on scriptural points about idle talking and so forth, as you will see. So, just reading. Talking with one another is called jalpana or prajalpa. Nowadays in this world, godlessness is so prominent that conversing with others means godless talk. Therefore, it is not profitable for a practicing devotee to engage in jalpana. There can, however, be many kinds of jalpana in the cultivation of devotional service. They are all auspicious for the devotees. Srila Goswami has written in his Karpanya Panjika Stotra. Where did he write it? Correct. While chanting the holy name of the Lord, if a wretched person in his lifetime achieves namabhas, or a glimpse of offenseless chanting, then all his faults are destroyed and their lordships become pleased with him. That's quite an impetus, isn't it? The power of chanting the Lord's names is so great. However, because my mind is so distracted, it requires a constant reminder. This Thakura Haridas says, whose disappearance day is tomorrow, one should cultivate every day. One should, alongside chanting, hear sambandha gyan, that is, knowledge of our relationship. You're not part of this world. Asango hyayam purusha, you have nothing to do with this world. Bhagavatam will tell this over and over again, as Shukadeva Goswami was a Brahmavadi before he became a devotee. And he knows all about detachment from the material world. Second canto, Srimad Bhagavatam. And so forth. Throughout the Bhagavatam, the topics remind us that our relationship is not here in the material world. It's actually a weird place. Everything goes sideways here, and stuff breaks all the time, especially for me. So hearing that and chanting the holy name, taking shelter of the holy name, also, as we mentioned in the Japa seminar last week, to purify a mantra, Krishna says to Uddhava in the 11th canto, one must study it carefully. And it's interesting how when you study a mantra carefully, then the mind becomes more interested in it. So all of that goes to say that those who are endeavoring for this perfection in chanting will reach the namabhas very quickly, because they're trying to be attentive in chanting. And the benefits of namabhas are unimaginable practically. But they clear the way for us to move to the higher stages of devotional service. Just a glimpse of offenseless chanting. From that, all faults are destroyed and their lordships become pleased. That's an auspicious life. Kirtan, offering prayers and reciting the scriptures, are all jalpana. But when these are performed with a favorable mood and devoid of material desire, then they are all cultivation of Krishna consciousness. Therefore, the conclusion is this: all prajalpas that are unfavorable to Krishna's service are averse to devotional service. The practitioner should carefully give up prajalpa. What should we give up? There is no fault in the activities of the Mahajans. The Mahajans have respectfully engaged in prajalpa favorable to devotional service, and this is our only duty. Sometimes puffed up devotees advise that all types of prajalpa should be given up, but we are followers of Srila Rupa Goswami. Being followers of Rupa Goswami, we will always stick to the path known by the sadhus who are following his instructions. In the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, as quoted from the Skanda Purana, it is said, one should strictly follow the easy path that the previous Mahajans have accepted. That path bestows great auspiciousness and is devoid of all misery. That's one mantra to take home. Strictly follow the easy path. Strictly follow the easy path. Our Mahajan's path is that which was shown by Srila Vyasadeva, Shukadeva Goswami, Prahlad Maharaj, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and his associates. We are not to leave aside that path to follow the instructions of new puffed up devotees, otherwise known as upstarts. All the Mahajans have respected that prajalpa, which nourishes devotion to Hari. We will discuss this in the appropriate place. Godless prajalpas are impediments to devotional service. They are of many types: useless talks, arguments, gossip, debates, fault-finding in others, speaking falsehoods, blaspheming devotees, and worldly talk are all called prajalpa. Useless talk is extremely detrimental. Practicing devotees should discuss topics of Lord Hari in the association of other devotees and remember Hari's name, form, qualities, and pastimes in a secluded place without uselessly wasting time. In the Bhagavad Gita 10:8-9, it is said, Aham sarvasya prabhavo matak sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajante mam buddha bhava samanvitaha matchita matkata prana bodhayantak parasparam katayantas shamam nityam tushyanti cha ramanti cha. I am the source of all spiritual and material worlds. Everything emanates from me. The wise who perfectly know this engage in my devotional service, and worship me with all their hearts. The thoughts of my pure devotees dwell in me. Their lives are fully devoted to my service, and they derive great satisfaction and bliss from always enlightening one another and conversing about me. Also in the Gita 9:14 it is said, Satatam kirtayanto mam yatantascha dradavrataha namasyantascha mam bhaktya nitya yukta upasate. Always chanting my glories, endeavoring with great determination, bowing down before me, these great souls perpetually worship me with devotion. In this way, the practicing devotee should cultivate unalloyed devotion. If they spend their days and nights uselessly talking with materialists, then the Lord's instruction, quote, always chanting my glories, will not be followed. In newspapers, there is so much useless talk. For the practicing devotee to read newspapers is a great loss. But if there are topics about pure devotees described in the newspaper, then that can be read. After finishing their meal, mundane people normally smoke and engage in useless talk with other godless people. It is certainly difficult for them to become followers of Srila Rupa Goswami. Reading novels is the same. But if one gets a novel with a story like that of Puranjana in the Srimad Bhagavatam, then reading that is not an impediment. Rather, it is beneficial. Argument is a prajalpa that is adverse to devotional service. All the arguments of the followers of Nyaya are simply godless quarrels. They do not yield any result other than wasting the mind's strength and increasing one's restlessness. In the Vedas, Katha Upanishad, it is said, Naisha tarakena matira apaneya. This intelligence cannot be attained by argument. The living entity's proper discretion is eternally established in his natural intelligence. That discretion naturally flows toward the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. But by arguing about directions, places, mistakes, and illusions, the heart becomes tough. Then natural discretion no longer remains. By accepting the Vedic Dashamul instructions and arguing accordingly, one's mind does not become wicked. What is good, what is bad, when such deliberations are made on the Vedas, that is no longer prajalpa. That is why in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is given the instruction, Ataiva Bhagavat Karaha Vichar, study Srimad Bhagavatam very scrutinizingly. Discussions to establish the knowledge of one's relationship with the Lord are not prajalpa. Those who conquer the assembly by useless arguments do not reach any conclusion. Therefore, it is certainly one's duty to give up such logicians' association. This is confirmed in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya 12.183, by Sri Vasudev Sarvabhauma, who said, in the association of jackals known as logicians, I simply continued to bark a resounding bow, bow. Now from the same mouth I am chanting the holy names Krishna and Hari. Those who are accustomed to discuss spiritual matters should remember the words of the Varanasi sannyasi as found in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Paramartha vichar gela kari matro vado kahan mukti phaba kahan krishnera prasado. The atheists, headed by the Mayavadi philosophers, do not care for liberation or Krishna's mercy. They simply continue to put forward false arguments and counter theories to atheistic philosophy, not considering or engaging in spiritual matters. Useless arguments arise from envy or pride, aversion or attachment to sense gratification, or foolishness or self-pride. Quarrelsome people also become intoxicated. I really like this section. I highlighted it, so I'll just emphasize. Useless arguments arise from envy or pride, aversion or attachment to sense gratification, or foolishness or self-pride. This is a key part because it may seem confusing that Bhaktivinoda Thakura throughout this chapter is saying that one shouldn't be argumentative, and then he says, arguing on the basis of presenting Siddhanta, arguing about the Dashamula. Siddhanta is good. So what's the difference between one kind of argument and another? It has to do with the state of heart. Why is one doing it? What's the motive behind it? And that's defined in this next section. Useless arguments arise from envy or pride, aversion or attachment to sense gratification, or foolishness or self-pride. One would have to examine one's own motives very carefully and why I'm bringing forth certain criticisms or arguments. Quarrelsome people also become intoxicated by useless arguments. And that's one of my favorite sentences. Quarrelsome people become intoxicated by useless arguments. Intoxicated. While discussing topics of the Lord and His devotees, the practicing devotee should always be careful to avoid useless arguments. Talking without reason about other people is extremely averse to devotional service. Many people talk about others to establish their own reputation. Being envious, some people are accustomed to discuss others' character. The minds of those who are busy in such topics can never be fixed on the lotus feet of Krishna. Talking about others should be rejected in all respects. But in the practice of devotional service, there are many favorable topics that are faultless, even though they are about others. In order to completely renounce talking about others, one needs to live in the forest. The two different types of practicing devotees are the householders and the renunciates. Because the renunciates have no business whatsoever with sense enjoyment, they can give up talking about others in all respects. But because a householder is engaged in earning, saving, protecting, and maintaining the family, he cannot completely give up talking about others. It is best for him to live in a Krishna-conscious family. When all one's material activities are related with Krishna, then even his unavoidable talk about others becomes sinless and a part of devotional practice in relation to Krishna. He should not talk about others in a way that is detrimental to anyone. He should talk about others only whatever little is necessary in his Krishna-conscious family. He should not talk about others without reason. Moreover, when a guru enlightens his disciple on some topic, then unless he occasionally talks about others, his instruction may not be clear. When previous Mahajans have talked about others in this way, there is merit in such talk, not fault. As Shukadeva Goswami said in Srimad Bhagavatam, Nidraya riyate naktam vyavayena chavavayaha diva chartehaya rajan kutumba bharanina va dehapatra kalatra deshu atmasaini shoshatsapi tesham pramato nidhanam pushyan api na pushyati. The lifetime of such envious householders is passed at night, either in sleeping or in sex indulgence, and in the daytime either in making money or maintaining family members. Persons devoid of Atma Tattva do not inquire into the problems of life, being too attached to the fallible soldiers like the body, children, and wife. Although sufficiently experienced, they still do not see their inevitable destruction. Although Shukadeva Goswami talks about the materialists in order to instruct his disciple, he is not considered a prajalpi. Don't be a prajalpi. Therefore, such activities should be considered beneficial. Again, in order to instruct his disciples, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu spoke about pseudo-renunciates in the following words from the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. The Lord replied, I cannot tolerate seeing the face of a person who has accepted the renounced order of life, but who still talks intimately with a woman. There are many persons with little in their possession who accept the renounced order of life like monkeys. They go here and there engaging in sense gratification and speaking intimately with women. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, my mind is not under my control. It does not like to see anyone in the renounced order of life who talks intimately with women. Unless one speaks in this way, while instructing and while concluding a subject, there is no benefit for oneself or others. I just have a few more paragraphs, but I figured I'd go through the whole chapter and then we can talk about it a little bit. Therefore, when the previous acharyas have personally set example and taught others, how will we be benefited by acting contrary to their instruction? And if one discusses in this way the improper behavior current in a religious sect or amongst the general public, then such talk is not averse to devotional service. Even if one sometimes talks about a particular person, there is no fault. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, Maitreya Muni, the foremost devotee, spoke about Vena Maharaj in this way. The great sage Maitreya continued, "Thus the king, who became unintelligent due to his sinful life and deviation from the right path, became actually bereft of all good fortune. He could not accept the requests of great sages, which the sages put before him with great respect, and therefore he was condemned." Sri Maitreya Rishi needed to speak about others in this way. He spoke to his audience to instruct them. This is not prajalpa. The practicing devotee normally discusses ancient history in the association of devotees. I could see when reading this that there's a lot of loopholes for someone who might want to take advantage and say, yeah, but I'm just correcting everybody. This needs to be said because only I understand, nobody else understands. But there are some modifying statements that are very important. They're subtle, but that need to be picked up, especially by those who want to advance in devotional service. Those who want to continue arguing, of course, there's none of you in here, but if there were, you could now at this point cover your ears and not take up the subtlety of this. This is not prajalpa. The practicing devotee normally discusses ancient history in the association of devotees. Occasionally they talk about non-devotees. Such talk is always auspicious and favorable to devotional service. But those who talk about others while influenced by devotional impediments like envy, hatred, pride, or distinction are offenders at the feet of Bhakti Devi. That's the modifying statement. And one has to self-examine and see why am I presenting this critique of others, or why am I arguing the point? So one should look very carefully and see that. I know personally, if I, as I've mentioned many times, get a disturbing email, something that maybe invokes my ire. You know what ire means? Like kind of, I'm irritated. And if I write it while I'm motivated by that feeling and send it, it's always subtly, it causes a disproportionate reaction. And then I'll end up having to somehow make up for something. But if I wait until my mind is clarified and I see, am I acting out of ire? Is some false ego involved? Something like that? And then I wait till it subsides. Then I can protect myself. Once I got an email from a very close godbrother, but it invoked my ire. And I wrote a response, but before I did, luckily, I ran it by another godbrother, and I said, I'm really disturbed by this person's email. What do you think of this? And he laughed at me and said, "You're crazy, you can't send that." There's no way he can't send that. He said, "I understand your feeling, but you can't send it. You have to completely," and he talked me down. And I wrote a completely different email and sent it. And since then, my life was completely different. It would have maybe even, wouldn't it permanently damage the relationship because it's too strong, but it definitely would have caused a great disturbance. And so, in Bhaktivinoda Thakura's words, but those who talk about others while influenced by devotional impediments like envy, hatred, pride, or distinction are offenders at the feet of Bhakti Devi. So one can take that to heart. Debate arises only from a desire for conquest. It is extremely abominable. Fault-finding arises only from imposing one's own bad habits on others. Do you like that one? This should be given up in all respects. Speaking falsehoods is another form of useless talk. Worldly talk is completely rejected by renounced devotees. Householders may accept some worldly talk that is favorable to devotional service if topics like archaeology, zoology, astrology, or geography are devoid of God consciousness. They should be rejected. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, Sri Shukadeva Goswami has said, words that do not describe the transcendental personality of Godhead, but instead deal with temporary matters, are simply false and useless. Only those words that manifest the transcendental qualities of the Supreme Lord are actually truthful, auspicious, and pious. Those words describing the glories of the all-famous personality of Godhead are attractive, relishable, and ever fresh. What three things are they? Yeah, you can use that when you present the Bhagavatam. This is attractive, relishable, and ever fresh. Indeed, such words are a perpetual festival for the mind, and they dry up the ocean of misery. Speech in the form of blaspheming sadhus is the source of great inauspiciousness. If one wants to attain devotion to Lord Hari, then he should make a vow like this. Who wants to make a vow like this? Because you want to please Lord Hari, raise your hand. Yeah, carte blanche, because you don't even know what it is, but you should raise your hand, because Bhaktivinoda is going to give you a vow. Come on. There you go. In this life, please repeat. In this life, I will never blaspheme sadhus. There you go. This, he says, if one wants to attain devotion to Lord Hari, then he should make a vow like this. In this life, I will never blaspheme sadhus. Devotees are sadhus. By blaspheming them, all one's virtues are destroyed. What happens? By blaspheming the supremely pure Lord Mahadev, Prajapati Daksha, the best of ascetics, met with severe inauspiciousness. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam, my dear king, when a man persecutes great souls, all his benedictions of longevity, beauty, fame, religion, blessings, and promotion to higher planets will be destroyed. The conclusion of this essay is this: whatever prajalpa is not favorable for devotional service should be carefully given up by Vaishnavas who are cultivating bhakti. Amongst these instructions, the instruction to tolerate the urge to speak mentioned in the first verse, Vasho Vegam, is only a conditional urge. By giving up prajalpa, the urge to speak is permanently regulated. In order to pass one's life without sin, one should not speak anything more than whatever little is necessary. Can economize. One need discuss only whatever is auspicious for oneself and others. If one wants to discuss topics of others, it will simply be useless speech. Therefore, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Lord Krishna instructs Uddhava as follows: Parasvabhava karmani yaprasham sati nindati sa ashu rashyate swartad asat yabiniveshataha. For those who are keeping score at home, this is 11.28.2. Quote, whoever indulges in praising or criticizing the qualities and behavior of others will quickly become deviated from his own best interest by his entanglement in illusory dualities. It ends with that verse. That's the essay. So, very practical instruction from Bhaktivinoda Thakur. As we heard in the song, Ohe Vaishnava Thakur, the devotees, SKP has just returned. Let's welcome him back. But a little more than that, because it's SKP. Thanks for coming back, SKP. Don't think we don't appreciate it. I was on the phone with his brother in India yesterday or the day before, and I said, where's SKP? He said, oh, he's already back. He just got back. He has jet lag. So I was relieved. So a couple of notes. Useless arguments arise from pride or envy. Quarrelsome people become intoxicated by useless arguments. While discussing topics of the Lord and his devotees, the practicing devotee should be careful to avoid useless arguments. Talking without reason about other people is averse to devotional practice. People do this to establish their own reputation. One who does this can never be fixed at the lotus feet of Krishna. So, a few reflections. Anything you heard that was meaningful to you, that you think you might be able to employ? Actually, we'll put the bar a little higher today. Something that was not only interesting and that caught your attention, but that you are thinking about using in your own life, that you're going to apply in your own life. The bar is higher now. Okay, go ahead. Tie goes to the runner, whoever's first. See, no prajalpa. We arranged it this way.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj, Dandat Pranam. I really liked the mantra you mentioned, strictly follow the easy path.
Yeah, strictly. Why did you like that, by the way?
Because I have seen in the past that, mind unnecessarily try to go into different path thinking that, something else will be better and always, get discouraged by the results.
Nice. I read a passage recently that caught my attention, and Prabhupada writes that chanting the holy name is sufficient. He said, but I see that my disciples, they're collecting so many austere books that, if I go more deeply within all these details and everything like that. Of course, Prabhupada also encouraged us to be well read and to know the Vaishnava canon very well. Shastra Sunipana means we should know how everything fits together. Nonetheless, there's a tendency to collect all kinds of Shastra and not assimilate any of it. And this kind of goes into this idea of complicating things. Drill down into what you have now. If you just take one verse from the Bhagavad Gita, one half a verse, and make it your center focus, and apply it regularly, you can dramatically change your life. And there's something very simple about devotional service. Devotees should be simple. It's one of the symptoms of an advanced devotee is simplicity. Thank you. That was worth the price of admission. What else? Okay, Dear Raj, and then go back, yeah.
Bhaktivinoda Thakur's schedule was really eye-opening. It seemed he hardly slept for 2 hours, 48 minutes in the day.
Literally eye-opening, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like Naimisaranya means the forest in which one doesn't blink. That's what Naimisaranya. Even for the blink of an eye, people don't sleep. Because they're so interested. This is the characteristic of real spiritual life. Is awakening. In fact, this is what is just the metaphor for awakening in spiritual life. It's just like awakening from a dream of sleep. And it's so exhilarating to realize one's potential. As one realizes, to the degree that one realizes one's spiritual potential, to that degree, one becomes averse to sleep, even. Yes?
And also you mentioned that state of heart is what matters in conversations and motivations. So that was also very deep and sublime. Thank you for sharing.
Why did you like that?
Because as you mentioned, it's the distinguishing factor between deciding whether something is prajalpa or is God conscious.
And it's interesting also, isn't it, that, as I mentioned earlier, sound carries consciousness. And when I emit a sound based on this subtle motivation of envy or lust, anger, that the sound itself is saturated with that. Just as much as mentioned in the Bhagavatam, 4th canto, that when a pure devotee speaks, the sound is mixed with saffron mercy particles from the Lord's lotus feet. It mixes with them, and therefore it has a heart-changing effect. So it's subtle, but it's palpable. Even in a normal relationship, so for instance, husband and wife know how each other sound, basically. And somebody might say the right thing, but say it with the wrong tone of voice. Have you ever heard the phrase, I didn't like your tone of voice? Yeah, but I said, but I didn't like your tone of voice. It's not what you said. It's not what you say, but how you say it and what's in your heart when you say it, the motivation. Even animals can pick up on it because it's a very subtle thing.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, Dhanut Pranam. Actually, I really liked the sentence that the quarrelsome people are intoxicated with their argument. It's of no use arguing with them. So, I think I took that to heart that, if there is somebody who is quarrelsome or, like they are against or something like that, you don't argue with them. You just go with the right, combining that with what Dhiraj Prabhu said, go with the right, examine your own argument, examine your own feelings, and then find out if you are in the right frame of, attitude to.
It struck me, that phrase struck me by thinking how one can actually become addicted to argument because it's intoxicating. I'm getting some flavor from that it's hard for me to give up. And intoxication generally leads to some kind of degradation unless it's purely spiritual. And however, it's by definition, when one's addicted to it, one can't give it up. So it's something to be really aware of. That there is some flavor in it in the material world, so much so that it can draw us in. So you have to be aware. Yes, Mukharavind.
Thank you, Maharaj, for the excellent class. Many points. I think the first one you told that just by controlling the tongue, we can advance quickly in devotional service. Is very, very true, and it's something that I can take to my heart. Second thing you told about, in this life I'll never blaspheme a devotee if you want to get the blessings of Lord Hari.
It's a vow, right?
It's a vow, yeah.
Yeah.
And then third thing you told about when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and many things you told, but the third thing that I like is when I think Lord Chaitanya described about the renunciates, what is pseudo-renunciates. One who talks intimate with the opposite sex is considered like a pseudo-renunciate, so I don't want to be a pseudo-renunciate.
Yeah. We hear in the stories Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, who had a policy of never criticizing any devotee. He didn't criticize anyone. And even if they had a fault, he wouldn't criticize them. And he wouldn't stick around for hearing criticism of devotees. And it's just interesting there it mentioned even if they had a fault, he wouldn't indulge in it. But oftentimes there's this argument that, well, we have to criticize because, and there was some scope for that in the writing in this chapter of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, that a critique meant to bring out the Siddhanta, to curtail others who are presenting wrong presentation of Siddhanta. Somebody has a duty to do that. It has to be done very carefully. On the other hand, one could just take a very radical view on life. You have full permission to do this because acharyas have done it. And just say, I'm going to opt out. That way I won't even have to analyze whether I'm doing it out of envy. And one could also then just set an example and say, I'll just be a living example of what I expect others to do, and then I'll just, for this lifetime, withhold all kinds of criticism. It's possible you could actually do that. I mean, whether you could do it or not, that's another thing, but you could actually decide that and take that position if you so desired. But it's a relief to know that in all kinds of circumstances that you do have that option to say, I'm not going to get involved because I'm not sure if it's coming from envy or anger or how it's being motivated or what the effect is going to be, so I'll just lay off. That's possible too. We're given permission in that way. Hari Vamsha.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Maharaj, for a wonderful class. I really like the point which was mentioned, talking about others is a verse. So there's no qualifier in this. talking about others in a negative way or talking about others for not service way. This is just a blank statement, very straightforward. And I have realized that since the whole Kali Yuga ecosystem is so surcharged with envy, even if you talk about others in the sense of concern, it can be picked up. The tone can be picked up in a very different way, and then different thing ensues, Argument can ensue from the other side, criticism can come, and then basically you started it. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur is saying, there are so many other topics to talk about. You can talk about Krishna, there is whole literature. So I really like this, straightforward. So talking about others is averse to spiritual life. So I thank you, that was very nice.
These things can be tried. Test it out. See what happens. It's like, so much Prajalpa was mentioned in the newspapers and so forth. One can experiment by, like Dr. Andrew Weil, he's a holistic health practitioner. He was a medical doctor from Harvard, but then he got involved in a lot of natural medicines and so forth, and he advocates taking holistic approaches, natural methods for healing when it's something chronic. When it's trauma, then regular medicine. But in any case, in one of his articles, he wrote about taking a news fast. He recommends to people like, okay, you're feeling an anxiety? Don't listen to the news for 30 days. Don't listen to any news, and see how you feel then, see what happens. So even in the secular world, there's this idea that there's a different quality to the vibration of Prajalpa that relates to worldly things that we have no control over, simply talking about others, especially nowadays in Kali Yuga, especially during an election cycle. It seems it's degraded into a way in which, everyone just tries to disparage the other person rather than, present any ideas or actually good qualities of, And when if something comes like that comes out at any time, everyone really notices, like, they actually said something nice. Can you believe it? It's front page news. But my point is that there are therapies recommended in the secular world to avoid hearing Prajalpa. Don't consume it and see if you feel better.
Prabhu, one point. So I was wasting a lot of time on my smartphone. So wasting a lot of time, and what I did is I deleted the Facebook app, and I also put the Safari icon in a hidden folder, so I cannot find it easily. Like, I have to be really conscious about opening that app now. So, and it has started saving a lot of time during my day. So,
nice.
Thanks.
Yeah. There's also, of course, I don't think anybody has a television anymore or watches television, but in the old days when there were TVs in the world, there was this movement called cut the cord, where you just get some, not while it's plugged in, but when you unplug it and you get some pruning shears and you just cut the cord. Little Susie and Bobby come home and like, oh, let's watch TV. It's like, all right, good luck. There's no more plug on there. It's just a dead screen. But right afterwards, members of the family will start noticing there's birds and trees, and we live in a universe, and if you look up into the sky, there's stars, and you can actually contemplate, where did I come from, and so forth. But otherwise, I can get sucked into this black hole and be lost for 7 hours a day as an average that people used to watch TV. But they don't anymore, because there are no more TVs. Right? Yeah.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, I made a note of a point that you said useless arguments arise from envy or pride, aversion or attachment to sense gratification, or foolishness or self-pride. How does arguments arise from aversion to sense gratification?
Was that one of the statements?
Yeah.
Aversion to sense gratification?
Yeah.
Aversion or attachment? I say, ragadvesha vimuktais too. Well, just the two opposites of trying to enjoy the world, and then when you get tired of enjoying it, then you talk about completely renouncing it. And the topic that is wholesome is in the middle, which is how to dedicate everything that we have, our senses and the resources that we have in the service of Krishna. So Jnanis talk about renouncing the world, and they waste their time in that way, and karmis talk about enjoying the world, and they waste their time in that way, but only devotees can purposefully use their tongues by talking about how to distribute millions of books or present Krishna consciousness all over the world in various ways. We're blessed like that because we can actually use our senses by dedicating them. Anat saktasya vishayan yatarhamum payunjita nirbandha Krishna sambandhe yuktam vairagyam uchate prapanchikatya buddhya hari sambandhi vasyana mumukshavi prityago vairagyam palagukatyate. And if there are things lying around that could be used in Krishna's service and you don't use them, then that's also false renunciation. So it could be interpreted like that. Yes.
Hare Krishna. I was just thinking how your one-liners can become beautiful mantras for life. Like for one, in one class you were giving this mantra saying, develop a discriminatory power. And last Wednesday class we were talking about speech as a service for Krishna, like speaking about his fames, glories. And today we are speaking about speech in a different bad form. So it can be a double-edged sword. So to discern speech, good speech versus bad speech. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Now I also advertised that we're going to hear something about Vamandev, because just by hearing about him, I mean even seeing him, you know, on the cover of this book, he's a little brahmachari. And he's the original book distributor asking for a little donation. He's one of ours. And there are so many instructions in this section. It's a joy to read this section over and over and over again. But I'm just going to read one verse that I marked in this area that comes about when Vamandev has asked for 3 paces of land, and Bali Maharaj is incredulous and said, take more. He says, I'm an emperor. I have so much. I can give you whatever you want. It's foolhardy to come and ask for just little something. It's like asking for the chaff from the grains, when you could be taking jewels and pearls and so forth. And here was one of the answers that Vamandev gave. It's Sri Bhagavanu Vacha. He's the Supreme Personality of Godhead who's come to enjoy himself in this particular way and to reciprocate with Bali Maharaj. And we'll find this out later, that he reciprocates in such a glorious way that the demigods are asking, what happened? How is it that Bali Maharaj got so much from Vamandev? That is, Vamandev, even now, is his eternal associate. He serves his devotee as a doorman in the Patala. And there's a way in which he became so glorified, did Bali Maharaj, because of the mercy of Vamandev, that the demigods wanted to know, how did that happen? And the answer came, and there's a beautiful verse in this chapter about how the Lord is Bhavagrahi Janardana. He knows the heart, what is this in this, the sentiment, the bhava of the devotee. He can suss it out, exactly what it is. And that's the most important aspect in our service, what's in our heart. Of course, we can't take advantage of that and say, oh, it's in my heart, so I just don't do anything. But he could understand Bali Maharaj's intention when he came into the assembly, did Vamandev, and Bali Maharaj, in his heart, wanted to surrender to Vaman. He couldn't at that particular time due to social restrictions because he was a demon in the assembly of demons. It was a little awkward. Not only that, he was in the middle of a sacrifice, and he couldn't just drop everything. But Vaman knew it. He knew that this mode of surrender was already in the heart of Bali Maharaj, and it came out when the when the final moment came, and his spiritual master, that is Bali's spiritual master Shukracharya, told him, "Don't do it. It's Vishnu." He said, "I'm doing it anyway." That's a big moment. When everyone says, the senses say, don't do it. And the parents may say, or everyone might say, don't do it, but then you know in your heart and you say, no, I'm doing it anyway. That's a big deal. Sarvadharman parityaja. And so from that, Krishna reciprocates unlimitedly with the devotee. That's part of the story, reciprocation. Not only that, there's another point, and that is that Bali Maharaj, says Sanatana Goswami, and he cites many other acharyas in the Brihad Bhagavatamrita. Bali Maharaj was so dear to Vamadev because he's the great-grandson of Prahlad Maharaj. And he got preferential treatment. And that just goes to show, just as in the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's mention that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu considered everybody in Kulina Gram to be dear to him, because there had been a poet that had written about Krishna, and he had said that Shri Nandanandana Krishna, more Prannath, that Nandanandana Krishna is my life and soul. This is this poetry book he wrote, and it wasn't even perfect poetry. There were sonnets, but sometimes a meter was off. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appreciated it so much and appreciated the author so much, he said, everyone in this whole village is dear to me, even the dog in this village is dear to me. So as Gopi Pranadhana Prabhu used to say, it's not what you know in bhakti, it's who you know. And so Bali Maharaj was connected to Prahlad, and therefore he was so dear that Vamandev even extended himself because of that as well. So here's one of the verses that we can take to heart. This is 8:19:24. I repeat, 8:19:24, and that's Yadrich Chayo Papanena Santushto Vartate Sukham Na Santushtas Tribir Lokar Ajitat Mo Prasaditai. One should be satisfied with whatever he achieves by his previous destiny, for discontent can never bring happiness. A person who is not self-controlled will not be happy even with possessing the three worlds. Purport: if happiness is the ultimate goal of life, one must be satisfied with the position in which he is placed by providence. This instruction is also given by Prahlad Maharaj. Sukham Aindriyakam Daitya Deha Yogina Dehinam Sarvatra Labhyate Daivad Yata Dhukam Ayatnataha. My dear friends born of demoniac families, the happiness perceived with reference to the sense objects by contact with the body can be obtained in any form of life according to one's past fruit of activities. Such happiness is automatically obtained without endeavor, just as we obtain distress. This philosophy is perfect in regard to obtaining happiness. Did you catch that last sentence? This philosophy is perfect in regard to obtaining happiness. Can somebody summarize which philosophy is perfect with regard to attaining happiness? Yes.
You don't have to endeavor for happiness, just like the way you don't have to endeavor for distress.
And how do you do that?
You just don't run after. You don't endeavor for it simply, and just.
You don't run after it?
Yeah.
Don't over endeavor?
Yeah. Don't endeavor for happiness or distress. Just only focus on Krishna, and talk about Krishna, and avoid prajalpa.
How do you do that? You want to say, Rasana?
I think the soul by nature is wanting happiness. But I think we pursue it in the wrong places. So I think this verse is specifically talking about looking for happiness in the material world. So just like distress in the material world comes by its own accord, happiness in the material world will also come by its own accord. But then looking for happiness in spiritual life brings it together, because distress also becomes an impetus to going closer to Krishna. That's how I understood it.
Thank you very much. It reminded me when you said that there was a song, I don't know what era it was from, 70s or 80s. I think I quoted it in one of my blogs. The refrain was, looking for love in all the wrong places. Harprasad, does that ring a bell? It's from the 80s? 90s? I don't know. I think it was a country song. But it relates. So many of those songs do. SKP. SKP was ready to go. Go ahead.
I think in third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam there is a shloka which comes from, I think, Soham runanam kshulla sukhaya dukkham mahatgatanam viramaya tasya pravartaye Srimad Bhagavatam Puranam yadai sakshat Bhagavan Rishibhya. It says that this Bhagavatam is revealed to put a full stop for the Kshulla Sukha, very small happiness. So, and we'll get Mahad Dukkha, very distress.
From the small happiness comes Mahad Dukkha.
So it's, it also, from the Rishis, the Bhagavatam is revealed to put to full stop of all this very small happiness.
It's important, I think, to study the psychology behind it. One of the things Krishna says in the Gita is the austerity of the mind. This always fascinates me. Is satisfaction. It's an austerity of the mind. It's like, how do you do that? Just be satisfied. How do you do that? And hearing these things, like the difference between concentrating on what's available here in the material world as rather looking at what is available on the spiritual side. One can make a discernment that one is worth pursuing, the other one isn't, and then there's some kind of satisfaction in just knowing that. Who else was ready to go? Yes.
So one thing I heard was that happiness or distress is a byproduct, and it's not equivalent to a product that you can buy or try to get. Since it's just a byproduct, if we make wise choices or the right choices, then automatically either the byproduct of happiness or distress becomes available to us.
Very interesting. Yeah, keeping in mind that the choices we make will result in various kinds of outcomes. Like Krishna tells us how the material world's rigged up, like Jayato Vishayan Pumsang Sangasteshu Pajayate, that there's by looking at the wrong thing and then getting attached to it, you're going to end up in a certain place. Knowing that up front can be helpful. I'll finish the purport. Real happiness described in Bhagavad Gita 6.21. Sukham atyantikam yattad buddhigrahyam atindriyam veti yatra nachavayam stitash chalati tatvataha. In the spiritually joyous state, one is situated in boundless transcendental happiness and enjoys himself through transcendental senses. Established thus, one never departs from the truth. one has to perceive happiness by the super senses. The super senses are not the senses of the material elements. Every one of us is a spiritual being, aham brahmasmi, and every one of us is an individual person. Our senses are now covered by material elements, and because of ignorance, we consider the material senses that cover us to be our real senses. The real senses, however, are within the material covering. Dehinosmin yata dehe. Within the covering of the material elements are the spiritual senses. Sarvopadi vinir muktam tapratvain nirmalam. When the spiritual senses are uncovered, by these senses we can be happy. Satisfaction of the spiritual senses is thus described, Rishi Kena Rishi Kesha Sevanam Bhaktir Uchate. But when the senses are engaged in devotional service to Hrishikesh, then the senses are completely satisfied. Without the superior knowledge of sense gratification, one may try to satisfy his material senses, but happiness will never be possible. One may increase his ambition for sense gratification and even achieve what he desires for the gratification of his senses, but because this is on the material platform, he will never achieve satisfaction and contentment. According to Brahminical culture, one should be content with whatever he obtains without special endeavor and should cultivate spiritual consciousness. I like that, special endeavor. No heroic measures to try to go after certain things. Then he will be happy. The purpose of the Krishna conscious movement is to spread this understanding. People who do not have scientific spiritual knowledge mistakenly think that the members of the Krishna conscious movement are escapists, trying to avoid material activities. In fact, however, we are engaged in real activities for obtaining the ultimate happiness in life. If one is not trained to satisfy the spiritual senses and continues in material sense gratification, he will never obtain happiness that is eternal and blissful. Srimad Bhagavatam 5.5.1 therefore recommends Tapo divyam putraka yena sattvam shud yedyasmad brahma saukyam tonantam. One must practice austerity so that his existential position will be purified and will achieve unlimited blissful life. I remember once when I was in Vrindavan, we were driving, back then before I was staying at Govardhan Hill during Kartik, we used to drive over in the morning. My friend Prem Kishore had an ambassador. We crashed it too. One morning we crashed because the roads out there are like not marked very well. But in any case, we drive over. But I just remember leaving early in the morning, and it was in Ekadashi, and people were already out in Vrindavan walking around, a lot of them. And I was like, wow, there's a lot of people out. And Prem said, it's Ekadashi. And I was just thinking, they know where the happiness is. Tapo divyam putraka yena sattvam. And just images like that, I mean, that image stuck in my mind. And what Prabhupada said here is you have to practice these things. Part of the practice is being in the vicinity of people who are doing this tapo divyam. It's not austerity for austerity's sake. It's austerity to please Krishna's senses. So that people know that if they go out on Ekadashi and do the parikram early in the morning, it's pleasing to Krishna. They know if they offer a lamp to Krishna during Kartik, Krishna's happy because it says so over and over again. He just likes a lamp. It's like he wants a lamp, give him a lamp. And and so you go out of your way to get where am I going to get a lamp? Go get a lamp. He wants a lamp. Make the austerity to go get it and then offer it to Krishna and he'll be happy. And when you do these things, you get the great reward. There's an impression that's left in your heart that where you see for yourself, you feel a twinge of happiness. That one twinge of happiness can change your life. You go out and you walk around Govardhan Hill, you go do something, some service for Krishna, washing pots for the Lord. And while you're scrubbing, you feel like, I'm happy. Or, you stay up all night to help decorate the temple for Janmashtami, and you go like, I've never felt such satisfaction in my life. And even when I've slept in, I didn't feel happy like this. This is something supernatural. With the super senses, we get this. One experience like that can change one's life and give one this upward vision that Vishaya Vinivartante Nirharasa Dehina Rasavarjam Rasopyasya Param Drishva Nivartate. One knows for oneself it's available. The real water's there. Although there's a mirage all around me, I know where to find the real water. It's within this sacrifice. Even Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that the supreme transcendence is eternally situated in acts of sacrifice. And someone reads that code one day and goes, aha! I finally found it. Everyone else is running around, just driving around and around and around. I remember when I was in high school and I was getting ready to split the scene and join the Hare Krishna movement. I was looking down. I was looking down. It was the last day of my junior year at high school. I was sitting up on the hill and I was watching everyone, all my friends, they were taking off to go try to enjoy the summer. And I was looking at them going, there's nowhere to go. It's useless. It's nowhere to go. And it's a fact. People are just running around trying to find something, but it's there within tapo divyam. So one has to practice this divine austerity, and then one can feel real satisfaction. So Vamandev comes, and he's so charming and beautiful, and just by walking into the assembly, in all his charm and beauty, and interacting with Bali Maharaj, we have a lifetime of instruction that can satisfy the heart and awaken that devotion for Krishna.
Nachariyar Marman, Nachariyar Marman, Nachariyar Marman, Nachariyar Marman, hey! Nachariyar Marman, Nachariyar Marman, Nachariyar Marman, Nachariyar Marman.